Okay, we are back into regular session for our special meeting of the Board of Selectmen for Monday, June 8th. How about if we do our Pledge of Allegiance now?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Well, first, let me say, as part of my report, it's wonderful to see all of you in person. I know that we've all been through a lot the last couple of months, but having you all here makes it feel like we're beginning to return to normal, which is a very good thing. A couple of updates from me. First, our COVID-19 update. We hold steady at 202 cases. 16 total hospitalizations, only 4 remain in the hospital to date. 2 of those are folks from assisted living communities, and 5 total deaths, and 2 of those were from assisted living facilities. No new cases have been reported since May 31st, and the last case actually was tested positive on May 29th. So that's really good. We've flattened the curve here, so I'm very happy about that.
I'm sorry, do you have any thoughts about how long we'll continue to do the testing?
I'm inclined to keep doing it as long as people keep signing up for it. If the numbers dwindle, we may move back to a single day versus 2 days. And then we also have to really look at that against what activities the school district wants to utilize the high school for. Don't want to be in conflict in any way. Testing is now readily available throughout the communities in southwestern Connecticut. The state's done a good job of standing up facilities, the hospitals, private health care. So, we wanted to bring it to our community because it was hard to find. But now I'm less concerned about that. So, we'll be making a decision in the near term about how we'll move forward on testing. Antibody testing is a different matter. Antibody testing requires a blood draw. And you have to do that in a very particular kind of an environment. And I don't know how some are doing it. I know it's being done outdoors in some places, which is appropriate. Indoors, they really want you in a negative pressure environment to be taking the antibodies. So that's what I'm told by our physician, our consultants. We haven't gone down the path of antibody testing community-wide for that reason and for the other reason that antibody testing is still not a return to work criteria. You can't be assured that even if you have the antibodies that you're not still shedding, as they say, that's an interesting word, but shedding the virus. So in relation to COVID, I'm sure you've heard and are as excited as I am that phase 2 reopenings will begin on June 17th, not June 20th as originally planned, which I think is terrific because I think there's a lot of things that need to be organized by businesses and agencies in order to comply with the regulations for those reopenings. There's a whole packet of information that's been put out by the state on the reopening criteria, but just to run through real quickly for you, it's going to allow restaurants 50% capacity for indoor dining, still no bar activity. You can sit at a bar, but no one can serve you at a bar. Outdoor dining can continue as long as regular capacity levels are not exceeded. Sports clubs and sports complexes, gyms and fitness centers and pools can all open with all sorts of the normal guidelines that you've been hearing with cleaning. You have to appoint someone in the organization to administer all of the rules. There's training, there's ventilation changes, closing of all common areas, changes to locker room protocols. And anybody that opens a concession stand, they have to follow the restaurant sector rules. Interesting, I'm sure, to people in our community are outdoor sports. they have determined that certain sports fall into a low, medium, and high risk level. So for sports that are of low risk, which would be individual sports primarily, moderate risk would include things like baseball, softball, soccer, volleyball, tennis, gymnastics, swimming relays, field hockey, crew, high jump, and long jump. All of those kinds of low and moderate risk sports can engage now in individual or group training, controlled practices, scrimmages, games, meets, and matches, and after July 6th, tournaments. Sports that fall into the high-risk category, which would include sustained contact, would be lacrosse and football, unfortunately, competitive cheerleading, wrestling, dance, rugby, basketball, ice hockey, water polo, martial arts, and my personal favorite, roller derby. Don't think we have that going on here. But those activities can't begin until July 6th. For any of the low and moderate risk sports that are outside and are competing with two teams, you can only have two teams. So you can't have a bunch of teams on a big field. And it has to be limited to those two teams, the officials, and limited family members in attendance. Pickleball and paddleball will be allowed, and group classes for fitness should be outdoors if they can be, or still held virtually. On indoor sports, the main crux of phase 2 reopening is sort of looking at this 50% of normal capacity. So indoor sports have to follow the 50% capacity or 25 people, whichever is smaller, per field or court or pool or rink. It says capacity limits can be exceeded to only include one parent or guardian per athlete. I don't know how you manage all this, but very interesting. The good news, though, is that pools will be able to be opened. They can open on June 10th for lifeguard trainings and then on June 17th to the public. And they have to manage their capacity so it's limited in the numbers of people. You can only have a certain number of people that, if they're out on the deck, they have to all be 6 feet apart. Because there's some pool areas that don't actually have a capacity designation, so they have to determine that on their own. And, just in case you were interested, you have to show up in your swimsuit and you have to shower before you come, because you can't change or shower at your pool. Hot tubs at 50% capacity. Gyms and fitness centers is also of great interest to our community, 50% capacity. And 6 feet between equipment if masks are required to be worn. If masks aren't worn, you have to have your equipment 12 feet apart. And you can't use free weights if the use of the free weights requires you to have a spotter. So you can't have anybody touching you. Outdoor arts and entertainment and other events will be allowed by limited capacity, only for short duration in time events. And, I guess I'm thinking about Shakespeare on the Sound when I think about this. Performers on stage are exempt from wearing masks, except they all have to be 12 feet apart from one another. I don't know how you do that.
Big stage.
Libraries. Libraries will be allowed to open, but our library is going to open on June 15th for outdoor pickup only. And they are in the process of making their plans for their indoor reopening, which will come with a series of rules, including the 50% capacity limit and a whole host of other things. So I don't know, I don't believe that they will be opening inside the building on the 17th. And then all other personal services like nail salons and other things, only by appointment, no waiting rooms, special laundering and disinfecting rules. Still no saunas, no infrared saunas, no steam rooms. But you can have a waxing and you can get a tattoo and you can get a massage. So, and then I didn't bother to detail, but also opening will be museums, zoos, aquariums, social clubs, and amusement parks. Okay, a couple other things just from my report. Just a reminder that tonight is the annual RTM meeting on the town budget. Finance and Budget is putting forward a number of additional cuts to the Board of Selectmen operating and capital budgets. Specifically, those are $100,000 from the Town Hall Capital Maintenance Reserve. The entire additional amount that we requested, they're cutting. They'd like to cut the $46,000 for the fire drill tower fence. In Parks and Rec, they'd like to cut a couple of capital items, $25,000 of the $30,000 Weed Beach concession equipment request, the $11,000 blower, and the $36,000 for repainting of the tennis courts. And in addition, they're cutting $100,000 in the general fund contingency account. So we will all look forward to this year's budget being complete after tonight.
Do we happen to know where that brings us compared to, if these do go through, where that brings us? As an overall number or percentage?
No, didn't
No.
do that.
Okay, no, I can, they'll mention it tonight. But.
So these will be amendments from the floor.
Right.
It all has to be voted on, so I don't know if they will all go through or not. But I think Jen will be doing some fast work at the RTM meeting. Human service update. I know that's important to everybody. We've only had a handful of new clients to the Human Service Department through this, which is very interesting. But we are anticipating that when unemployment benefits run out, then we're going to see a spike in clients. The Eversource utility shutoffs for residential customer non-payment are prohibited at least through November 1st. So that's really good news. And Allie and her staff are doing a great job working with everybody on utility payments and rental payments. And the family meals and lunches for this, family meals through the Corbin Cares will continue through July 3rd. The lunches to the seniors will continue through July 3rd. But then we're hoping that we're going to bring the lunch program, a takeout lunch program, back in-house, get our chef back in here to make takeaway lunches that will then begin on right after the July 4th holiday. Beth is reporting that the seniors in our senior program are really in need of interaction, which is challenging for those that don't utilize well technology. But Beth and Marcy are beginning to work on some virtual programming to try and help those that are willing to engage with that. And we are hoping that the center will be able to open sometime this fall, but with, I'm sure, very appropriate and strict guidelines. Our paving program will be happening as planned later this summer. We haven't been rushing to do that. Some people have written to us to ask, gosh, it would have been a great time to get the paving done. Except that everybody's using our roadways, biking and walking, and Ed and I talked about it early on and said that might push the envelope of frustration for people if we did it too soon. But we will be paving 5.1 miles of roadway sometime after July 1st when our budget monies are available. And please drive by. The Highland Farms construction project is well underway, and hoping that the parking lots and the walkway will be done by July. And the landscape will come in the fall after the plans are finished. And we've had an opportunity to vet those and get input from the Highland Farm neighbors. That's it for my report. Kate?
So depending on what happens tonight, well, regardless of what happens tonight, we've discussed plans to evaluate our budget status. We'll wait until mid-November, to do the first evaluation of where we stand, how we think the year is going to turn out. Are we going to have any issues there? And then we'll probably do it monthly thereafter. We're waiting for the first quarter because of the tax deferments, and that will get us past a lot of our early expenditures. But what we plan to do is identify accounts that will be ones that we're concerned about, that we need to watch the trends on, that these are going to trigger us to say, we need to make some adjustments elsewhere. And then we'll also be identifying the accounts that would be possible to adjust downwards if we're running into budget problems in other accounts. So we want to be on top of that. I do not want to be coming to the board in April or May saying we need to go to the RTM and get additional money. We're going to live within our budget. Maybe not happily, but whatever they choose to do tonight, we will live within it as best we can. We're going to, at a future meeting, bring the gifts up. We'll review the process on gifts in general with you, but I think Jen and I will be proposing some changes to our process, so we'll bring that out at a future meeting. As Jamie said, Highland Farms, the walkway work is done. We did have to make a change in the original plan for surface there because the specs, what was spec'd out for a surface was either way far out of what we could afford or would not hold up to a wheelchair. So I went out there, Ed took Darren out there and a wheelchair. I went out and walked the different possibilities of the surface, and we ended up having to go actually with asphalt to be able to make sure it was ADA compatible. But it really is great. And the last time I was out there testing the surfaces, talking with the workers, they said they had seen, you could tell after they cut the path that people were going up there and walking it already. It wasn't even complete, and people have been walking there. So that was really happy to hear that. The last thing, we have started our reopening for the public. We are open by appointment only. We are not open to walk-ins. You can see if you, I don't want to encourage you to wander through the building, but we have put in barriers where employees could not be physically separated by more than 6 feet. All the public counters, I'm not sure if Parks and Rec is completed, but when I walked around and checked on things Friday, town clerk's office, assessor, all the places that have public facing counters, they all now have glass barriers. They look really nice. It's something that you think, wow, we should have done this a long time ago. We've got markings all over the place for the 6 feet distancing. We have signed the heck out of this building. We still get people, you know, if an employee forgets to lock a door, we do still have members of the public who see that sign that says employees only, and they just walk right on through. The lobby outside room 119, outside the gym area, that is open to the public to drop things off, to call up if you've made an appointment. Somebody will come down and meet you. You cannot enter the building without a mask. So we just ask the public to assist us in keeping this building safe for our employees, and hopefully it won't be that long before we get back to full public access. We are working on, the next thing that we'll be working on is how to open the building for in-person tax payments, but still restrict access to other spaces, so that if somebody wants to come in and make their tax payment in person, they can do so, but we then don't have them wandering throughout the building. So I can't tell you how great Ed Gentile and Tony Campanella, the facility supervisor, have been through all this, and my staff as well. Printing signs, putting them up, coming up with ideas, they've just been terrific.
Question. So if a member of the public, such as myself, were to get their dog license renewed,
You need to do it through the mail.
Oh, just through the mail?
Well, you can make an appointment if you really want to make an appointment for that purpose.
Got
yes.
it. But
Or
through the
do it
mail
through
preference. Okay.
Yeah, I think the town clerk's office would prefer it be done through the mail. They are, for next year, I think, they have looked at an online piece of software that would allow you to do
That'd
it.
be nice, yeah.
Yeah.
Can someone pay back to the tax bill you were mentioning? Can you just walk into 119 entrance and just drop off payment there?
You know,
need an
we
appointment?
have a drop box outside of room
That's a
119.
good idea.
If you want to just drop your taxes in there, yes, you can. We have had people drop their sewer and drop, tax payments there. Some people like to come in, especially like if you were past due on your motor vehicles and you need them to stamp it. Some people like to do that, but I do encourage people to pay through the mail. or use the online portal. You can't do that, but we recognize that some people want to come in person.
And then following up your comments regarding the changes you've made to the facility here, I was asking about those COVID-19 funds. Was there any update from today?
Oh, yeah. Jen, I think you talked to Jen more about it than I did.
If there's something, if
Yes.
not, then we can table.
So what we're learning is that all other forms of federal and state grant funding have to be exhausted before you seek
The state funds.
the state funding through the CARES Act. There's $75 million available to municipalities right now. Our allocation is currently $10,000, but we'll have until the end of August to refine what our request was. We were trying to, sort of eyeball what our expenditures were going to be. So at the end of August, we'll be able to say what our expenditures were through the end of June. And then there'll be another opportunity before the end of the year to see if there were additional expenditures. But the money from Office of Policy and Management, which is this CARES Act money, is meant to only be the backstop to make up for anything that wasn't funded by another state or federal program. FEMA, primary and secondary education funding, and other funding sources. So the goal ultimately is that municipalities should be held whole for any of our extraordinary COVID expenditures.
Do we think we'll get to that point, or we're going to exhaust our other funding sources?
Well, if we get money from FEMA, there's always a 25% match.
Okay.
So FEMA would only give you 75% of the expense, so that 25% is.
So that could go through.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And so right now, our allocation would be $10,000 based on what we've submitted, and the $130,000 that's due to the schools.
Right,
That's
the
already
independent of the schools, right?
Right.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And what was my other question?
Thank you, Kate.
I think that's good. Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll move on to new business. First order of business is to discuss and take action to approve a resolution appropriating $1,015,000 for various capital improvement projects and authorizing the issuance of bonds and notes in that same amount to meet the appropriation. And these are for the heating control system at Town Hall, the conversion of the Norotan Fire Department to natural gas, the construction of new tennis courts at Darien High School, the installation of about 350 feet of new sidewalk on West Avenue, and the replacement of windows on the north side of the gymnasium. You might recall that these were the items that the Board of Finance supported our recommendation, at least the stuff that's in our budget, for bonding. So I don't know if anyone has any questions about this resolution.
Only a procedural one. We have the separate resolution for the sidewalk repair and
Correct.
stuff.
Mhm.
So procedurally, I just wasn't clear on why we have two as opposed to having just one.
That was a decision made either by our bond council or by the Board of Finance in asking for the resolutions.
Okay.
I don't know what the reasoning was, but
It's fine. It's more curiosity.
It's a good question. Okay, if there are no questions about the resolution, I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution appropriating the $1,015,000 and authorizing the issuance of bonds. Sarah, seconded by David. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The next one is to discuss and take action on the resolution appropriating $503,000 for sidewalk repair and replacement project and authorizing the issuance of bonds and notes in that same amount. Any questions about this one? We love sidewalks.
Move to approve?
Okay, thank you, Kip. May I have a second?
Second.
Krista? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Okay. Discuss and take action to recommend the approval of a special appropriation for debt service to the representative town meeting. And this is,
when we refunded bonds a couple months ago, there was a premium. And one of the things you can do with premiums is use it to pay debt service. And sometimes the timing is not, like you don't use it in the same fiscal year. So what this is appropriating the premium to the debt service fund. It's a fund we don't use very often, we only use it for this kind of thing. So this will put the money, the premium in that fund, and then the next payments that occur in the next fiscal year will be able to come out of that. So benefits this year, the fiscal 21 budget.
So the 216,756 is the calculated interest payment that will happen next year.
That is, yes,
Okay. That's what I understood.
So it's interest, not principal?
it's
interest.
The bonds are interesting.
Does anyone have any other questions about this transfer? It's from an account for the premium on bonds of $216,756 to transfer out to, as Kate said, the debt service fund. No further questions. I'll entertain a motion to approve the appropriation. David, seconded by Sarah. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Two-sided papers are killing me. Discuss and take action on request to accept a gift. No, wait. Do we have this one?
Yeah, Middlesex Commons?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Accept a gift from Middlesex Commons Association to the Darien Police Department. And this is a gift of $500 from the Condominium Association to the Darien Police Department. Very generous gift. Anybody have questions about this gift?
Kate, could you just tell us a little bit more, again, flesh this out as to how gifts, the current policy on this goes?
You know, a lot depends on what the nature of the gift is, whether or not the charter allows a commissioner department to accept gifts outside of the Board of Selectmen. We do have gift funds established, so it varies from department to department. So typically a small gift, if a small gift were given to the police department, they have a gift fund that we can deposit it into without going through the board.
Oh, is there a dollar amount associated with that?
No, that's part of the problem, is that there is not a dollar amount associated. And there's not a dollar amount that says a gift under X amount of dollars does not need to go to the Board of Selectmen, even if it's just a general gift to the town. So that's what Jen and I are going to work on.
I
to
support that.
Partly because you don't want us running to you every time a gift is given.
And
Like all those gift cards to the Human Service Department, right?
oh, right, no, absolutely. I mean, based upon my experience, there's
You're
threshold
right.
levels, and it
Yeah.
ratchets up what the commissioner could approve. Perhaps you approve what our body approves.
Right,
you know,
right. So I think we
tiered
might-
approach.
We might do it somewhat along the lines of transfer powers, where there's a level where Jen can do it on her own, a level where she and I can agree.
Right.
And then we would include some kind of reporting,
Absolutely,
where, whether it's every time a gift is received or every quarter, we'll come up with some mechanism where we report to the board.
And then where do, I know it's $500, where does the $500 go to? Where is this reported?
We have a gift fund.
Just in a gift.
Which it's a fund basically of individual gift funds. So, the senior center has a gift fund, human services has a gift fund. So within that, each department that has a gift fund has a set of accounts.
Okay.
And then there would be record keeping kept on those, because sometimes
Yeah.
people give gifts that are directed, that can
Right.
only be used for
Right, so
certain
somebody
things.
might give a gift to Parks and Rec to buy benches.
Yep.
So that gets treated specially because that's the only thing that money can be used for.
Got it. Okay, so the police department has a gift fund into
Yes.
which this money will go,
Yes.
and then,
Then it's used at their discretion. If there were no ties to this, it's used at their discretion.
and is that reported back out in any way, and how it's used?
Yeah, it all has to run through our accounting system. So we know everything, where and how it's spent.
So you could inquire, but we don't typically get a public report.
Correct.
Yeah.
But just like the general fund, you know, where every line, every expense, every check is accounted for.
Mhm.
If you ever wanted to find out, you know, hey, how'd they spend all this money?
Yep.
Not that there's all that money.
Right.
But if you wanted to know how it was spent, we can tell you.
I'm sure Blum and Shapiro audit that account like everything else.
They do, but you know, as with any audit, there's a materiality threshold and,
No, clearly, I'm just saying they look at it. It's part of their work papers.
yeah, and you know, they have different focuses every year, but gift funds and in particularly student activity funds are often a focus, even though
Oh, yeah.
they are not a large dollar amount. It's an area where things can happen, bad things can
Exactly.
happen, so.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have a motion before us to approve the gift of $500 from the Middlesex Commons Condominium Association to the Police Department. Sarah moves. May I have a second?
Second.
Kip seconds.
Who was that, second?
Kip.
Thank
All
you.
those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Very nice.
thank you very much. Yes, very, very nice. Our police have been well cared for throughout the COVID pandemic. Okay, Kate, you said you had a resolution for us on the tax
I do.
appeals?
Is this in the packet?
These were, we discussed them in executive session, and this is a new
Oh,
resolution.
these, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Thank
don't
you.
give
Sorry.
these resolutions until the
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, our first motion is the Darien Board of Selectmen hereby approves the settlement of the case of Jeffrey and Diane Urban versus the town of Darien to amend the fair market value of the property to $4 million from $4,313,200 effective with the grand list of October 1, 2018 in accordance with the stipulation for judgment. I have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Kit. May I have a second?
Second?
David seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And our second motion is the Darien Board of Selectmen hereby approves settlement of the case of Clifford and Anna Blaze versus the town of Darien to amend the fair market value of the property to $3 million from $3,266,500 effective with the grand list of October 1st, 2018 in accordance with the stipulation for judgment. May I have a motion to approve? Sarah moves. May I have a second?
Second?
Krista, thank you very much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you. All right, moving on to transfers. Item number 7, discuss and take action on a request to transfer $400,000 from the Board of Finance reserve to the paving account. You might recall that during the budget process, the Board of Finance requested the utilization of these funds to help offset the cost of paving, so rather than tax for the additional monies.
We're still going to get our is it our paving amount from the state or not?
The town aid road?
Yes, town aid road, yep.
We're still going to get that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, that doesn't impact, this does not.
No, I
impact
know,
that.
but I'm just saying we're still going to.
Correct.
So far.
Okay.
Every year's a different year.
The check is in the mail?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Does anyone have any questions about this transfer? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Kip. May I have a second? Thank you, David. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and our next transfer is discuss and take action on a request to transfer $9,450 from the police holiday pay to the clothing allowance. This is to account for a contract change. Any questions for Kate on this one?
This is a cleaning allowance for the union members, and part of the negotiations was we increased it. It was one of the few areas that we found we were below our peer towns. So we agreed to the increase.
Do we have an issue at all in the police holiday pay then?
That was my question.
Line?
No, so one of the other things that happened in this year's budget, or this year's contract was, there was quite a change in focus for the police to quality of life issues. And they wanted the ability to take their holidays as days off instead of pay. It used to be that basically, during the pay period in which the holiday fell, you got an extra day's pay. So the week that 4th of July falls in, they would just get, instead of 10 days pay, they'd get 11 days pay. They wanted the option to take that day unpaid, or a paid day off, instead of taking the cash. So what we agreed to was basically a biennial check. So at the end of December, if they hadn't taken those days off, they get the cash. So we're seeing, we had to do an estimate in the budget as to how many people would take the days and how many would take the cash. So there is a positive balance.
Okay. And my other question, I'm sorry, it is just more generic to transfers. Again, what is the threshold at which it comes to us as opposed to, can you just talk generally about transfers? And I don't want to spend a lot of time on this at all.
Under $500, assuming that it's not going into creating a new position, a new person, and it's not going from one department to another.
Okay, so
within a department, if it's under 500, Jen can do it. Under, I can't recall now, 3,000 or 5,000, Jen and I can do it, but it has to be like to like.
Okay.
We could not move from police department to public works. It has to be within the department, and we can do some things that are like to like. We could move from office supplies to office supplies.
Across departments?
Within the department. Some departments have set segments.
Okay.
Anything coming out of contingency, anything that would be creating new or additional hours for an employee, those kind of things have to go through the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance. And then just to top it all off, legally, none of it ever has to come to you.
Okay.
The charter gives the Board of Finance the sole transfer authority from one appropriation to another, but they do like that the Board of Selectmen reviews it and approves of it.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions on the transfer of the $9,450 from patrol holiday pay to clothing maintenance allowance? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Sarah, thank you. Second, Kip. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, great. Okay. Thank you. We have two sets of minutes to approve. We have minutes from our May 12th special meeting. Are there any corrections or additions?
People are looking at you.
I know, we always look
I
at you.
know, exactly.
I read it over.
Okay. Hearing none, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of May 12th. David, thank you. I have a second.
Second.
Just, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And then we had special meeting minutes of May 18th. Any corrections or additions? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Mark, second. Sarah? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, terrific. Is there any public, Kate, did we
No,
never
not-
received any public comment today? Okay. Okay, agenda review?
May I ask a question just on the public comments?
Yes.
We did get a public comment, I think it was one, at one of the meetings. Does that get reflected online? Does that get submitted?
What do you mean?
Yeah,
We did receive one email.
right.
It wasn't in the packet. We did receive it at the point of dissemination. Does that get posted online? That was just my
So
question.
the public comments we've gotten so far, I either put in their entirety in your minutes. I think I read them out. There was, in fact.
There was that one. I only remember one.
Oh, there've been a couple, and they were put in, there was one several meetings back where there were two. One was it Kathy Barrett, and I forget
Yeah,
what
that's
the
the one I'm
second one
thinking
was.
of.
And they were put into your minutes in I think we presented those to
Okay,
you.
so,
Yeah.
The last meeting, there was one, and I summarized it for you at the meeting, and the
Correct.
summarization is in the minutes.
got it. Okay, all right, I just wanted to satisfy, thank you.
Okay. Okay, hearing nothing.
Are we to have agenda review yet?
Yes, I already called agenda review.
Okay. No, I was just gonna ask, I seem to remember when we talked about deferring the $500,000 contribution for the fire apparatus reserve
Mhm.
as part of our budget process,
Mhm.
that there was talk about revisiting how we do that, or the lifespans, or certain things like that. But
Mhm.
I wasn't sure where that stood. I don't know that we necessarily review it, but I just like to get an update on where that might be.
Sure, and I think that's a discussion at the Board of Finance level. I think it's
Oh.
how they want to pay for,
Okay.
large capital equipment purchases like that. There's a variety of different methods that we should have a back and forth with them. We should offer them suggestions and ideas on what we're thinking. And so I don't think they're quite there yet in their process. I think they'd like to get beyond the budget and then take up a couple of issues, I would think.
Yeah, I guess for some reason I had it in my head that Kate and Jen had something in mind.
Well, I always welcome Kate and Jen's input on that. It's something that we've all been thinking about, I think, since maybe I walked in the door.
Yeah, we had a study done a number of years ago that presented some options, and
Yep.
I think it's worth revisiting because,
Do you all have a copy of that study? We should make sure that everybody gets a copy of that study.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yep. It's from 2013, and the study was really intended to analyze whether we had the right amount of equipment and the right pieces of equipment for fire response in the town of Darien. And the study provides 3 different sort of scenarios in their recommendations, so it'll be worthwhile for you to
That'd be
read.
great.
Do you recall that study also talked about their methodology for projecting the numbers?
the numbers of equipment or the
No,
numbers
the
of-
dollar amounts. I mean, there's various ways of doing
Ooh,
that.
did it, I don't remember if it addressed that in particular, but that is one of the things,
The Board of
you know,
Finance.
there's
will have.
multiple,
expensive, that equipment.
you have to consider what inflationary value you're placing on the equipment, the life of the equipment.
Life expectancy, right, all that
Right,
stuff.
and then, do we have the right number of pieces of equipment?
That's part of it, yeah. No,
Yeah.
I'm just saying that all of
Yeah.
that blends together to,
It's a lot of yarn.
yeah.
And then after you decide all that, then it's how best to fund it.
Okay. It's a big number each year,
It is a very big number.
so it's worthy of
And,
looking at.
and one of the things that prompted the discussion in the past was looking out to the future and seeing that at a certain point, our level of funding was not going to be sufficient.
Right. And our maintenance practices too.
We've been very fortunate
Right.
in that regard that we keep our equipment far longer than most municipalities because they're well cared for. And they refurbish them when they can. Sometimes something will be on the list for a replacement, but when you get up to that time, they realize that they can refurbish certain things and not actually buy a new piece, which is great. Did you have a
I did
question?
have, just reflecting back on our budget process, when we got to the grants and how we were allocating those, to talk a little bit more holistically about the library and any other grants and to whom we give. It's not pressing, it's just before we begin the budget again.
Right, yeah, I think you do want to have a discussion about
Yeah.
the agencies to whom we give grants and what our expectations should be of them.
Absolutely.
Kate and I have talked for a number of years, and this will be the year before the next budget cycle.
Just
We
a lot
will-
of things we talked about in the budget cycle, and a lot of things just in general, have been pushed aside by having to deal with COVID.
Exactly.
Oh, absolutely. No, I
And
think we have time.
yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying that, just sort of throwing it out there to make sure we can try to get that in before we, because when we're in the middle of the budget, it's very difficult to.
It's not the right
We're not following any policy or land or framework that we would all agree upon, so.
It will make the budget process easier, and I believe that our grants need to be codified in grant agreements like other agencies
Yeah.
utilize when they give grants. Then it will be clear for everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good to have the reminder of things that we need to get back to doing.
Yep. Okay. If there's nothing else, then I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of interviews.
So moved.
Thank you, Kip. Seconded by Sarah. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great, okay.